it's never a good idea to force your employees under fear of losing their jobs to come to work. It doesn't produce the right outcome. I'm no longer a Google employee.
Yes.
In the spirit of full disclosure, Google decided that work-life balance and going home early and working from home was more important than winning.
Eric Schmidt, former CEO of Google, is talking about why Google fumbled its lead in the AI race. He gave a candid talk at Stanford University that he thought was confidential, but someone recorded it and posted it online. He had Stanford take it down, but not before I made a video on it. A link to that should appear at the top of this video. But then the mainstream media published headlines on it and he quickly backtracked. He's now talking out of both sides of his mouth. Let's take a look. A video of Eric Schmidt blaming remote work for Google's woes mysteriously vanishes. That's right, he got Stanford to take down the video. Former Google CEO does damage control over remote work comments. Google's former CEO takes back what he said about remote work. Eric Schmidt says the quiet part out loud. Eric Schmidt walks back claim Google is behind on AI because of remote work. So Eric's behavior and his about face is one of the reasons I actually started this channel. In my career, as I climbed the corporate ranks, I just felt that people were less authentic, especially with employees that were several levels less senior than them. And I'll make a video on that someday. If you think that would be useful, let me know in the comments if you'd like to see it. But today, let's take a look at what he's trying to do and why, so we as employees understand how executives really think and what parts they just don't say out loud. There's also a surprising twist you'll see later in the video that'll probably shock you. After the media picked up on the video, Eric made a statement to the Wall Street Journal specifically. So let's see what he says. Okay, and this is what he says. He says, "I misspoke about Google and their work hours. I regret my error." Now, to me, that says it all. It's a very terse statement that basically doesn't say much. I think he's actually sorry that something he thought was behind closed doors and should have been private actually leaked out into the public domain. And now everyone sees what he really thinks. That's what he's actually sorry about. Do I think he actually thinks those comments he made in the video were incorrect? No, absolutely not. I think what Eric Schmidt really thinks is what he said in that original video. The problem is that he knows that a lot of people are not going to like it. And Eric has a public image to maintain. And that's what he's trying to do here. It's just damage control. He's trying to say what he thinks people want to hear and not what he really thinks. Schmidt's admitting that he asked for the video to be taken down. He declined to comment further. And Stanford isn't responding to a request for comment as well. It's interesting that both Google and OpenAI have now instituted similar return to work office policies. They mandate that people come into the office 3 days a week. If you don't like these policies, by the way, check out my other video. I give you some tips on how you can push back or at least find work that better suits your preferences. But companies are increasingly pushing folks back into the office. And the article also goes on to say that Schmidt joins a long list of corporate leaders, including JP Morgan, Chase CEO Jamie, Tesla CEO Elon Musk. They've all complained about work from home policies. They say they make the companies less efficient and less competitive. People in the upper ranks cannot lead from behind the desk or in front of a screen. Now, if you watch my other video, you'll know that I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all solution. I think there's different environments, there's different styles of companies, different kinds of company cultures that fit different people, that fit different companies in different stages of their evolution. So it's really up to the company and the individual to find a good match. I think for many people, including myself, I prefer remote work, or at least mostly remote work. That's what works for me. I've been super productive with remote work. And I think that's what works for a lot of people. Okay, well, let's take a look at this article from The Verge that says Eric Schmidt says the quiet part out loud. And one of the more eye-popping things he said during the talk was his advice for AI startup. And that was, it's okay to steal content if you're successful because you can just hire lawyers to clean up the mess. And he told the students, if nobody uses your product, it doesn't matter that you stole all the content. So, what's he really saying here? I think what he's saying here is a mentality that executives often have. It's about winning, and that's regardless of some of the legal consequences potentially to others or even the collateral damage that other employees might face in pursuit of that winning. So it's up to each and every one of us to understand the motivations, the intentions of the company and its executives. So we, as employees, can safeguard our own interests and push back whenever we need to. And as further evidence, this seems to be part of Eric Schmidt's playbook. He knows a thing or two of having lawyers clean up the messes. They talk about how YouTube grew in its earliest days off the backs of videos it didn't have rights to. And, there's a lot of things that happened in the early days of Google, back when the internet was still in its more nascent stages. There's arguments about what was technically legal or not. And I just find it's kind of interesting that today, YouTube is complaining that other startups like OpenAI are scraping its content and using it even though they technically don't have rights to do so. I guess that circle has come all the way around. Okay, but remember I told you that there was something about Eric Schmidt that I would get into that would probably shock you? Let's take a look at this video.
Since leaving Google as chairman, Eric Schmidt has wielded a $20 billion fortune to build an ecosystem of influence. And for the past 2 years, the 68-year-old committed at least $100 million to a startup accelerator called Perlot, which he leads as executive chairman with CEO Michelle Ritter, a 29-year-old entrepreneur who he has been dating.
Hey, did you get that? So Eric Schmidt, who's almost 70 years old, is dating a 29-year-old entrepreneur. He's funded her company and he's dating her at the same time. Now, I'm not making a moral argument against what someone should do or about who someone should date, but there's a bit of a problem and a conflict of interest here. He's funding a company with someone who doesn't seem to have a ton of experience and expertise. So let's see how that worked out.
She also had mentioned to me that there was a wealth management and asset management platform that she was overseeing at Perlot, and that it was managing about $450 million. However, we later found out, when we wanted to get more details about this asset management platform, Michelle later clarified to us that actually the money that she said she'd been managing, it was only committed via a letter of intent, which means that the money wasn't currently being managed by Perlot. So,
okay, well, a lot of this seems pretty sketchy. Eric invested $100 million into this company. It's not clear exactly what they're doing. There's some kind of supposed incubator for AI startups. Then she claimed the company was managing 400 and some odd dollars in assets. But on further investigative reporting, it was found that there were just letters of intent for the company to manage that. That's a little bit different from actually managing assets. It's very easy to write a letter of intent. They're not binding. That doesn't mean the company's actually doing anything substantial.
So there are some specifics around that we just had to iron out through the reporting process, and that was the result of having extensive conversations with her about how she was leading the company.
So what do the employees have to say about the company?
So we did speak to quite a few employees to try and understand how the company was run and what, or if it was successful in what it set out to do. Some of the feedback that we did receive that revolved around the fact that it was often hard to understand what some of the business ventures were and whether they were successful. There was quite a high turnover rate, and some employees said that often the CEO, Michelle, had said that there was influential people like Jeff Bezos or Michael Bloomberg that had been committed or involved in the company. And, later when we asked Michelle about that, she said that there was no formal partnerships. Also, I think that there was one quote that we included in the story, and that was that one employee told us that they felt that they had sort of entered Perlot thinking that it was an opportunity to work with Eric Schmidt and, his concept of fund the future, but they left with a feeling that, in fact, they'd been working for more or less a vanity project.
Wow.
Well, it seems like the company was badly run. Employees weren't happy. They essentially felt it was mismanaged, and they actually felt that they were misled. These influential figures, such as Jeff Bezos and others, weren't actually in any kind of real partnership with the company. And they just weren't doing anything meaningful. Okay, well, all I have to say is it doesn't look like Eric Schmidt was thinking with his head there. But what I find interesting is that Eric talks about how regular employees should grind away, work long hours, and not really have a work-life balance. And for some instances, I think especially in very young companies, startups, where you have a small team, you're fighting impossible odds. I think sometimes that's the only viable way to make a success out of it. But now here, And that's essentially what this company was. And he's dating the CEO of this company he funded, a woman decades his junior. I don't think they're grinding away while dating each other. It seems very hypocritical. I mean, maybe if the startup CEO had taken Eric's advice, it would have done a lot better. Sounds like a failing company to me. So, what are the key takeaways from all this, and what can we learn as employees? A main point here is that executives care about winning. They want to punch their ticket. They want to get the headline wins, and of course, the stock appreciation and the financial benefits that come along with that. And it's very easy to see those. So once they punch their ticket, once they get those headline wins, once they can claim leadership and company success, they can go on to bigger and better things. That's essentially how career progression and success works in the corporate world. You need to punch your ticket, show that you've done something, and then you can move on to the next step. Now, the problem is oftentimes there's a lot of collateral damage done to regular employees. And to these executives, it's seen as acceptable. And as part of that process, a lot of the executives, I'm not saying every executive does this, but a lot of executives, they're just not authentic. They just think winning is all that matters. And if they can win and get away with it, that's what they'll do. So as you can see, it's difficult for employees to navigate the corporate world. Employees often say something publicly, but they may think very different things privately. And one of the reasons I created this channel is to tell everyday employees what their managers, what their executives just won't say out loud. So I hope this was helpful. If you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, and don't forget to sign up to my free newsletter as well for more tips and insights. Until next time, stay savvy.